You're watching Network Radio. Live from the Media Broadcasting Center.
Good evening, everybody. Another Sunday night, and welcome. I'd like to start our evenings off with a prayer, just to get ourselves going, and then we'll be right back with a little bit of the opening. So, if you can pray with me, I would be appreciated. Dear God, our Lord Jesus Christ, thank you for all that we've received this week. Thank you for bringing us together again on another Sunday evening. Thank you for the resources to be able to do all this. May you watch over the broadcast, and may you guide us in your spirit to share with each other and have fellowship, so that we may be better walking in our faith. Amen. So it was quite a interesting week for myself. I had a few experiences along the course of the week, and one of them happened to be during one of our other shows on the Media Broadcast Center. And it turned a bit to the spiritual and the faith-driven side of the conversation. And that, of course, started a lot of debates and so forth from different points of view. But it really let me sit back and see how strong the other conversations in our daily lives and what we're coming across is. I'd always known it, um, but this was a really on the topic faith side of things, and not just answering somebody's more specific comment. And the one gentleman, very kind and a great person, but sees the world view as he does, and brought up a couple of really major points. So that just sparked me to going, well, you know what? I have asked these before, and I still kind of ask them, and never really had any kind of answers or really gave it enough deep thought. And it really brought up for me seeing those, just on those two questions, what kind of conflicts that we really get into, and are subjected to, um, every day, and just with inside of our occurrences, just being out in public and in our jobs and with friends and with families. So I wanted to address those, and I wanted to kind of speak about this whole conflict realm that we really don't discuss an awful lot. So that's the subject of the show tonight, is conflicts. As usual, anybody who's seen any of the previous shows, our format is about walking in our faith today. It's not a debate about whether there's God. It's not a debate show. It's about, for those that are of faith or questioning about it, it's a discussion about faith in today, and how to live with that in a better way, and how to grow with inside of our faith, um, in a respectful manner, and non-denominational. Um, so that's kind of our basic format. As usually, the lines are open. I am producing the show again, so the kind of the realm of calling in, which I highly really enjoy. It's much easier and much better to actually have sharing and calling in. So 866 806 6264 is our toll free line. Just let the phone ring. It takes me a minute for it to come up, and then I have to transfer you into the studio. Once that happens, it asks you for a code. And tonight code is on the screen. It's 148 658 1039. Once you put that in, then it'll bring you into my program and you'll be in queue to be able to speak. So I'm just going to run our first song for this evening, and we'll be right back after that.
Christ is my reward and all of my devotion. Now there's nothing in this world that could ever satisfy. Through every trial, my soul will sing, no turning back. I've been set free. Christ is enough for me. Christ is enough for me. Everything I need is in you. Everything I need. Christ, my all in all, the joy of my salvation. And this hope will never fail. Heaven is my home. Through every storm, my soul will sing, Jesus is here. To God be the glory. Christ is enough for me. Christ is enough for me. Everything I need is in you. Everything I need. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back. No turning back. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back. No turning back. The cross before me, the world behind me. No turning back, no turning back. The cross before me, the world behind me. No turning back, no turning back. And Christ is enough for
happen to, all right, and I just happen to love that song. By all means, if you have suggestions of things that you would like to hear, uh, that was the Hillside, and they have an amazing amount of videos out on YouTube, and I encourage everybody to listen to them as much as possible. It was a new discovery for me, and I happen to love their material, their energy, and the heart and spirit that their message brings across. Well, we might as well kind of get right into it a little bit tonight. Um, so I had a couple of really two core questions in part of the conversations that I had that evening, and kind of the uh, searching and asking for directions on solving this for myself in my heart through the week. And also along with the actual conversation itself. So, and how you communicate and how you are able to discuss these things, because they do come into, depending, especially depending on who you're dealing with, they can be really quite hardcore. They can get very passionate. Um, you're disturbing other people's beliefs. And the two, I guess I'll lay out the two main questions first. The one that was presented to me was, um, please explain to me, especially by the Old Testament, how you profess this God, and it seems to be a God of wrath that sets out plagues and kills planets and kills a population and does all these horrifically um, terrible things and allows all these terrible things to happen. And the second one was the matter of if Christ is the only way to God, or the scriptures, Bible are the only way to God, then how do you account for all the people that don't know, that don't have the abilities to be preached to or be taught, or have churches like we have in this Western world, or even in remote areas, and kind of that same whole line of thinking. You're out on a deserted desert island, and you've never seen a Bible, and your mother died in childbirth, and you're the only human being ever brought up on the island type of scenario. So those were the two main functioning questions. And of course they got into quite a bit of a debate between the few people, and for a lot of it, for myself, being a little bit newer to the faith, and not as versed in the actual scriptures and being able to quote them and so forth. And as I've stated on other shows, that's not who I am. I don't learn this way, and I don't retain knowledge by cracking a book and studying. Um, Maybe that's one reason that I had stayed away from the church for so long. Is it always seems like the only way um, Christianity is taught is by to sit there, open the book, and read these scriptures and study it and memorize them, and um, this is what Christianity is. Um, and of course, I realize now that that, of course, is absolutely not true, but that's kind of the indoctrination, the social engineering of these religions and the society, I think, is really programmed into us. And I think a big means of that is to keep more away from the church. So my my method, or what kind of resonates with me a little bit better and sits better, is I come across questions like this, and I try my best to really listen to other people and to um, be respectful of them. I really believe in trying not to judge in um, a judgmental manner. Of course, we have the right to discern people's actions, try to correct them by the scriptures or by our faith, but I really try not to judge them. Um, I firmly believe that's God's position, and I've always, even through other teachings and other cultures, um, have always had the belief that by you judging, and even for that matter, that nice little term, giving advice, I've always viewed as in you're stepping on God's and the Creator's hands here. He's the one who has set out that path for him, and who am I to interfere in the Creator's decisions for that individual? So I really do try not to judge, and I'm trying to learn much better how to communicate that my um, communications and speaking with them is from my point of view, from my research, from my knowledge base, from my perspective, and I try to share me. Um, and it's not a judgment on you. What you do with it, and then what you try to evaluate out of that, and what you take away from it, is your responsibility, and you will answer that. And all that above me speaking or saying anything is between you and God, and um, I try to leave it at that. I'm not always, uh, of course, very successful. I can get very passionate and so forth. And within our discussions, I was getting a little bit loud, which I have been told I have a tendency to do once in a while. And I try to realize that I don't intend to do it. It's just kind of, I guess, my nature again, that um, I attempt to get louder to be heard. So I try to recognize that and curtail it. So I'd like to kind of take on the first question of, well, you know what? You kind of got a really nasty God out there. You you profess to um, follow and teach this God and so forth, but on the other hand, um, he's nasty. He floods the planet. He creates plagues. He has disease. He has all these other aspects to him. How can you ever profess a God of love and gentleness and consciousness and all the rest of it when you have this evidence of this planet and this human misery um, evident in everyday life? How is this possible? And as I mentioned, this was part of always, I think, an underlying question for myself my whole life. I think we've all had that questioning, and what part of that we've actually um, come to resolve ourselves is, I found, very limited to how much you've been confronted with it, and how knowledgeable and passionate that you're speaking with somebody who's knowledgeable and can give the evidence of that suffering and of those experiences and so forth. So I think it's kind of an ongoing, recurring theme. It has been for me, and from a few people I've talked to through this week, it always has been for them. And sometimes it can be a real struggle depending on what's happened in their lives at that given moment. So I really had to sit back and try to see things for what it is. And for one, I really came down to, as far as the flood and plagues and pestilence and judgment and so forth. Um, I was really discovering that, are you really even asking the right question? Like, why is that a God of love? And why is that anything else? I really started to struggle with the actual question itself. Um, I mainly turned around, and the first instinct that I started to have when I listened to my heart about it was, okay, wait a minute. Um, I'll try to answer this if you can answer me one thing first. Why do you feel you have the right to even ask that question? Um, when you create something, um, when you create your child, or you create your company, or you create anything, do you have your child at a year old or 2 years old telling you no, or going to do any action, and you don't tell them what to do, you don't direct them, you don't um, exert any influence over their lives, you don't punish them? Um, do the employees of your companies come to you and tell you, well, no, no, I don't like your real idea or your product here or whatever. We'll just change all of this here, and I think you should be doing this. And kind of the basic idea is, where did the creator start telling the creator how to do things, and where did the created gain the ability or the right to question the creator? I kind of want that answered first, because I think in Tail, that is one of the full cruxes of the answer to those questions for me. He does these things. He is these things because he is the creator. I don't, for one, have the right to even ask that realm. Um, I have some of my speculations, but that's up to me to have in my own heart, and how to rectify my spirit with those circumstances. So there'll be things that I view at, of going, yeah, you know what? He wiped out a planet. He puts plagues on a city. He follows Babylon to the ground. Um, of course, since when don't we even judge our fellow man for wrongdoing? Why would we even presume that an all graces God wouldn't judge what happens with inside of his creation? Why would we have the arrogance and the audacity to tell a creator that, you know what, this part that I put in here doesn't fit and it's not right and it's damaging the rest of the parts of the whole mechanism, so I'm removing it? Like, why isn't that just so obvious? Um, you turn around and you have a part in an overall organism, mechanism, massive machine that all runs in sequence and so forth. Your computers, your, you reference it to all kinds of, even just our basic technologies, and we have hundreds of things that all depend on another thing and are woven together. And why wouldn't that master programmer go, that's a glitch. That's a virus inside of the program that's stopping everything else to function. And that wasn't what my intent of this program operation was. So I'm deleting it. And then what? You want parts of the other program to stand up and say, "Oh, no, 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 we want it. We like operating in this ill-functional way." Um, that's just so ludicrous. And I think we have to kind of maybe try to reconcile this with inside of our own hearts, that we are the created, and to try to humble ourselves, or just even, I don't even like the word humble, because there's nothing humble about it. It's about being realistic. How does the created ask the created creator for that right to say what goes and to judge the actual creator? It's when I started viewing this much more in that manner, it just made so much sense to everything. Um, those puzzle pieces that wouldn't quite fit, no matter which way you turned them around and go, started really just following into place. And I ended up finding that I was asking myself all these other questions through my life, and um, this kind of realization happened, and I started having floods of memories of prior occasions, and went, "Hey, that makes sense now. That that makes sense that I was going down this way, and the engine blew, and it stopped me from moving out to BC, and by the time I got the car fixed and everything else, and this whole frustration in my life, and going, geez, another money and time and effort, and now I can't go, and now I have to be over here, and 6 months later, I got a home and a job, and everything is fine. But at that time, you're cursing. Well, maybe that's simply the creator going, hey, wait a minute, you're going down a wrong path that I didn't have intended for you. So I better just kind of redirect you. Let's just pull this wire out here and plug you into another socket, and let's see if we can give you a little reboot and see if you'll start running the right way, before I have to do anything more drastic. And just that kind of analogy and stuff, started coming on with me, and just hundreds of things flooded in, and it almost gave me, um, quite a more of a sense of humor about some of the things that have happened in the past, and even some of the things that are happening now. I'm more and more on my daily occurrences of whacking my thumb, or being frustrated that this piece of drywall won't go up here, and this phone isn't working, and I'm trying to learn the programs here, and I can't get this to run, and this picture won't save. I can't make this, and frustration levels skyrocket, and I want to throw something across the room, and I can almost take a breath and sit and laugh and go, okay, you're trying to tell me something. I'm being too stubborn to just take a breath and listen and take a look at which direction am I supposed to be going, because what I'm doing isn't right. And I can almost laugh at my frustration sometimes. Um, so I found that this realization in my heart really changed a lot of my basic behaviors, and my basic anxiety, frustration, anger, that emotional turmoil that our daily lives, and living in this society can create and boil up in us. Um, I found that it was almost like that little reboot, that little reset, that, for lack of a better terminology to it, that resetting back to accepting the Creator's will for our lives. Our stories are, I believe, are written, and our multitude and faceted of decisions through our whole life. God knows them all, and has, depending on what we chose and set out, these multitude of multi-million scenarios, and He knows every single one of them. And that little reset brings me home, and it allows me to reconnect, take a breath, take the emotions out, gain a balance back between my logical thinking and my senses to that emotional turmoil string that is so used against us today. Um, that total imbalance, I think, is very much used against us, and at many times. I kind of was looking through a different videos and so forth, and frankly, you know what? After this conversation on Tuesday night, I was a little bit turmoiled about it, and I was almost more turmoiled because I didn't have the answers. I couldn't engage in this conversation um, in the elegant way, and in the way that I see so many other people being able to quote the scriptures and so forth, and it was almost a little frustrated or a little angry at myself for that. Um, I actually kind of felt like I was letting God down. That I was given this opportunity to, I viewed it as defend God almost with inside of this conversation, and I failed, and I wasn't sitting right with me, and it was amazing. The next morning I got up and I'm having my coffee, and I usually try to watch a couple of YouTubes and sermons and so forth when I have my morning coffee just to start my day. And it was amazing that the first thing I came across was this um, teaching and sharing that these things happen in this self judgment, and not to let things bother you. God does have His paths. Again, a little bit of that reset button. Things are as they're supposed to be, and you're doing what you can do, and grow. And that's what really tweaked me to the show tonight, was to kind of go on this journey this week and discover and balance some of these. But one of the messages, um, I just want to find my little reference here to it, that he was saying at the end of his statement was, there's a big difference between the gospel and its implication, and sorry, there's a big difference between the gospel and the implications of the gospel, and separating those two things, what the scriptures are and what they actually are, and what they say and what their intent is, and then reading the gospel, and then your thinking and your reactions and your interpretations of it and everything else are all really about the implications of the gospel, the reactions to them, the what does okay, so there's that, then there's this, and you're doing all the talking about here, and that kind of really triggered me right into that first basic question now that I have for somebody that asks me, well, you've got this vindictive, mean God, and that whole function of that statement about the implications of the gospel, this triggers that in. Okay, then, well, answer me why you, as the created, have a right to judge the creator. Um, because one's reacting on that implications of scriptures and of God. That all that realm and all those statements are implications of your behavior, what happens, what the planet is doing. It's not the gospel. It's not God. It's you. So man being a defective part, infecting good parts, why wouldn't it be removed? Why wouldn't the creator of that entity, device, remove it? It just makes such perfect sense to me. Again, I would love to hear anybody's comments, and it doesn't necessarily have to be on here. This is about sharing and the rest of it. The numbers are on the bottom of the screen that you're seeing now. 866-806-6264 for the toll free. Let it ring. I'm able to cue you in. It'll ask you for a code entry that brings you into the show's room, and that tonight is 148-658-1039, and those codes will change every week, but the toll-free line always stays the same. So that kind of was one of the realizations for me with this question and statement of the debate. One of the other ones for me really came down to the other part that I just alluded to was, well, God might have judged, but like you judge every day of your life. You tell me, well, this guy assaulted this one, this guy stole, this one did this, and you seem perfectly fine to jail him. I mean, man now has literally tens and hundreds of thousands of laws and codes and rules and everything else that you feel you have the right to judge others, put them in prison, fine them, restrict them from life, take things away from them, do all these massive different actions to them, and you do it on a daily basis. You condone it, you support it, you pay for it. What's with that? Like, why are you asking about God at all when you haven't even looked at your own backyard and you haven't even looked at yourself? Again, I don't really understand that two different perspectives of something, and where out of your own individual behaviors you have some kind of justification of labeling and condemning God for what you perceive. It's so much of a misunderstanding of the whole world, in my view. I don't get it. So I want to answer these statements, or I'm learning to answer these statements by much more, instead of trying to justify and give you an answer. You have a dozen or a couple of dozen questions to answer first before you even have a go at receiving an answer to your question. And I almost believe that you're going to, within inside of that practice, discover that your questions and your statements of what God is and what your view is going to totally change, and is going to totally change your perspective on who and what you are as well. At least I hope that it would have those basic types of results. The other, I guess I will follow through. and maybe a little bit more fair. So where things happen. That debate went on for quite a little while on Tuesday, and got heated and came down and so forth. We're quite fortunate that we're able to have these discussions, and they all may become passionate. They all may fire up and spark, and I don't see anything wrong with that. To be passionate about your beliefs and to try to express them, because our conversations never turn into attacks or accusatory or putting somebody else down or anything else. They're discussions in order to become better people and to advance knowledge and sharing, and we do have the best of intent in what we try to do. So we're able to bring those passionate levels and stuff up and down. But at the end of the conversation, when I was again asked for my input, because my answers to them weren't satisfactory, unfortunately I wasn't able to answer them like I'm answering the question now. My my point of speaking with them really came down again as to how to handle that conflict with inside of this conversation. And I kind of answered him by more of the general overall memes of, well, you have the right to your point of view. I feel, and it is my perspective, that we have a God. It's a loving, everlasting God, and no matter what your beliefs and your journey has been, you will at one point stand in judgment. That's going to be between you and God and nobody else. And I have no say, no right, no anything to do with it. That's between yous. And I will be doing the same thing, and that's between me and God. I choose to believe that. I choose to do anything else. For me to judge you for exercising your actual God-given ability and right to choose for yourself and to act for yourself, again, I would be extremely arrogant and extremely wrong in doing that. So that is between you and your creator, and it's none of my business. I choose to be this way. What you do is your choices. I believe that we all answer for our choices in the end. And that's where I left it. And uh, that kind of basic respect for each other as God's children, I think, is very important. I think we lose some of that in the aspect of handling our conversations and handling our conflict with another individual and another circumstances or a scenario. I think for myself, one of the better ways I'm trying to handle these conflicts that we have on a daily basis is the matter of realizing that the other people you're dealing with and the other situations you deal with is also God's creation. It's God's child you are talking to. It is God's blessing on him just like it is you. And by us not respecting that in the basic fundamental ways, I think is stepping on another part of God's creation. And that's one of the ways that I've started to try to view things in order to help with this daily conflicts of everything we deal with, and how to change my perspective and perceptions of what's really happening. Did that guy really cut me off? What's going on here? And did that person just spend 15 minutes in front of the cash register trying to get a card and what's their PIN number? Because these things are so convenient now. You just have to have a bank card, and they're so fast for everybody. So I don't know why in a checkout line it now takes twice as long than when you used to just give a person $20. Except for now today too, you also got to tell them, like $20.02 from 1901 equals $1 back. You don't need a calculator for it, really. At least you never used to have anyway. But all these things, they started being in a little different perspective for me when I'm going, but wait a minute, you know what? These are all their journeys, and these are their paths, and these are their experiences, and they're getting lessons just like you're getting lessons. And what's your real responsibility in reacting? How are you supposed to handle this conflict? Isn't what's fundamentally going on here as well the test of you on how you're handling your conflicts? How are you handling your experiences? Do those experiences bring you closer to God and to Christ? Or are those experiences bringing you closer to emotional chaos? Which way do you want to view a conflict? And how are you going to react to it? And this is how I'm discovering that I'm receiving in my heart on part of my path in my growth of dealing with things. So that was the first segment. I'll play our midterm song, or our second song here. Again, the Hillsong. They're just brilliant. I love the energy, especially of this piece. I've listened to it a few times. I listened to it through the week to bring myself up. And I find their energy level just so amazing and so powerful. It's a connection. It gives us time within this song to also reconnect with the Creator and having our time with Him. It's a very powerful piece. I hope you enjoy it. And again, by all means, contact me if you have messages or songs that you would like to hear inside of the format of the show. And any suggestions you have with the format of the show. Let me know whether you like this format, whether you have ideas and suggestions you'd like to see. I really wanted this show to be developed along what we wanted and what we saw that was necessary to grow in our sharing and grow in our faith in today's world. It really is what it's about. So, pick up the phone. Let's hear from you. Enjoy the song, and we'll be back when we've switched over.
God, we look to you tonight. Above the singing, God, above the music, above the songs, let your name be lifted high, Jesus. Let your name be honored, God. And we commit all that we are to you, God, everything that we do. And we reach towards you, Jesus.
Wow, again, these guys I think are just so awesome. They're so powerful. They're uh, not just the lyrics for me lift me up, but I really enjoy watching their videos because I'm seeing such young, powerful, passionate people, and it's so refreshing to everything else that I do through my week and all the other projects and things I'm involved in. Um, it's a great balancing measure for me for all that I see out there and report with the other shows on the NBC network here. It's very refreshing and definitely lifts my spirit. I hope it does the same for you. So, kind of on our second bit here, it's kind of 8 o'clock and into the first hour, so I don't want to just dwell on the one subject the whole show. The other segment here was um, the big debate that I had a stumbling block about was, well, the everything you hear out there and so forth. Well, if you're not accepting Christ, then you're going to hell. There's no way into heaven, and for one, what kind of judgment is that? And two, like that desert island scenario or the tribe out in the middle of the Amazon. And in these day and ages, I don't think many have uh, don't have a resource to be exposed to scriptures and teaching and so forth. But it does happen. I'm sure it's whatever. But either way, it's their question. It's their perception of the world and so forth. So um, it's the duty kind of to answer that. And again, I don't come from the perspective of being a preacher or even that knowledgeable. I'm coming from this perspective of I'm got to be one of the simplest people there is, and I'm trying to find my way through this journey and experience that uh, God has given me, and I'm trying to do my best with that experience. So I'm on this journey right beside everybody, um, and with the limited resources that I've ever had or done, I'm just trying to do the best that I can, and I'm trying to discover these answers in my heart, just as well as trying to answer people that have got this anger in them by their questions. And that is one of the things I really noticed in our discussion on Tuesday. I can, no matter how they wanted to justify their positions or to express why they were having their decisions, what I was really doing, because after about 15 minutes into it, I kind of just listened, and I was really picking up, no matter what they were saying in the words, the babble, um, was the pain that I was hearing in their tones and in their voice. You could hear the frustration and the anger and pain that anger was coming from, of their questioning and their trying to justify their thoughts. Um, and that's what really came across for me. And I wanted to come up with a better understanding, not only for myself, but a better understanding of how to help people in that questioning and searching of things. Um, so I ask in my prayers of, I have this questioning. Help me with this knowledge. Help me, show me your wisdom that you created the Bible from. Help me, Christ, show me some light on the path you want me to see. And I very rarely actually go to the Bible itself because I'm not a very well read individual. But I do absolutely use it as a resource, and I absolutely try to find it. I'll I have a couple of gigs that I try to find where I can actually type in questions and try to get a direct answer, because I definitely can't do it by picking up the Bible and reading a dozen chapters and trying to discern it myself. I just can't. I just don't have that abilities. So I typed in a question and I got referred to a couple of the scriptures here that I'd like to share with you. One being over in, and I'm on the King James Version, and one of them being Romans chapter 2. And I found this really relevant to how is it that God will judge the ones that haven't been taught about Christ and so forth. So one of the answers I've got through answering this was to go to Romans 2, verses 12 to 15. For as many as sinned without law shall also perish without law. As many have sinned in law shall be judged by the law. For not the hearers of the law are just before God, but the doers of the law shall be justified. For when the Gentiles have not the law, do by nature the things contained in the law, those not having the law are a law unto themselves, which through the work of the law written in their hearts, their consciousness, also bearing witness, and their thoughts, the meanwhile accusing or else excusing one another. And as you can tell, I'm not that well in the written word, but that really came across to me, even just stating those without the law are law among themselves. So with researching over this basic premise that without being taught a Bible by the church, you're condemned. There's no way to God, which I just knew was absolutely in my heart right off the bat was not what the scriptures ever said anywhere. And once I had read this few verses, it kind of really started structuring and making clear to me. We're witnessed to God every day without reading the Bible. We're given the details, we're spoken to, we're shown, we're directed, we're given witness, we're given instructions. We're see the influence and the abilities of God every moment of our lives, both sleeping and awake. And we're imprinted. It's all around us. That's how you know God. You don't need to be taught by the Bible, by a church, by a pastor, and then have some outside person sit there and construe a question of, oh, well, it says this, so, none of that matters. Yeah, it says that. And it says an awful lot more, too. And again, I come down to that conflict. How do you how do you deal with the conflict? And it brought me back to asking these questions again. Yes, the Bible says, and Jesus quoted, um, I am the way. Nobody comes on to the Father other than by me. Um, but doesn't the Bible say an awful lot more? When was the last time you sat down with scriptures or went out and asked the question you're asking me? Although it's not a question, it's a statement. But how long have you researched your question? Have you gone out yourself and done, and what have you discovered that led you to believe that that's the only thing the Bible says, or that's the only teaching that there is? Um, and respond to that answer they're giving. It's it's getting into these statements or questions or perceptions of other people without the clarifications and without kind of coming on to some mutual respect and boundaries of things that turn discussions and other matters into actual conflicts. And then, depending on how far you allow those conflicts to go, turn just into more and harsher conflicts in our lives and with those people. Are we going to be able to resolve everything? I very much doubt it. There's a number of people I try to communicate with and just realize, well, they're on their journey, and have a nice day, and let me know how that works out for you. Um, because it's not my responsibility to change it. My responsibility is to do everything I can to share what God has given to me on my path, and for you to lead the path that God's laid out for you. So all I can do is what I can do. If that's not working, and if that's not going, I'm not going to browbeat. I'm not going to force. I'm not going to do anything. Here's where it is, and like I said, have a nice day, and let me know how it works out for you. I'm really curious. I really care about you and what happens, and I'm here to help, and I'm here to support. Let me know how it works out for you. And there's no reason to actually be in these conflicts. And the more that I was recognizing this, the more that conflicts really don't exist. They're a manifestation of society and Satan, and part of the deception. There is no reason for a conflict for between us. The conflict takes two. And I started challenging myself that what's my role in this conflict? Because I have a role in it. Whether I recognize it or not, either way, in order to have a conflict, it takes two parties. So I have a role in this conflict. What role am I playing? And can I change that role so there's not a conflict? Well, absolutely. I'm the one who is control of my behavior. It's my responsibility, not anybody else's. So, yeah, it's up to me. So, if you really want to get down to a very simplistic side of conflicts, there isn't any, other than the self created ones. Um, of course, that comes into an awful lot of different New Age teachings and so forth have actually taken that reality and blew it out of perspective and proportions, um, which I don't carry them that far, and I believe that's a big part of the deception, that they've taken truth and run with it up to that 80 or 90% level, and then twist it at the end to make it part of their deception of what is really going on. And that's at times quite difficult, and I'm sure there's a dozen different shows involving that whole statement. So I'll try to stay a little bit more onto the point. With that end of it, it brought back to me going with that whole aspect of, okay, well, I don't have somebody teaching me the scriptures. One of the other factors that I did come across, and I'll just pull up my other screen again, was Romans 1. And that was 1 through 19 and 20. Because which may be known of God is manifested in them, of God has fruited it onto them. For the invisible thing of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his internal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. That again for me was kind of pretty powerful, and was, when I thought about it and kind of let it integrate with me, is just so true. I mean, you, like for me, it's nature and um, being out in solitude, and I mean, I can be out in the bush or be out on the lake, and I just see the magnificence of this existence around us, and I just know there's so much more to everything. There's just, how many of us through our lives have sat there and gone, well, what's our purpose? Well, where does this come from? You're 10, 15, 20, 12, and you're sitting in your room and you're about to go to sleep, or you're out in some playground, or you're out in your space that resonates with you, and you come up with this question: where does that come from? And we've all had these experiences through our whole life. It's part of our human condition because God's given it to us, because it's imprinted in us. God is us. We are made in the image of God, and we are part of him. Whether we want to deny it or not, it's still truth. And the evidence of that truth occurs hundreds of thousands of times throughout our life. And that's why I really liked that couple of verses, because to me, it says exactly that. So that no man is without an excuse, because it's imprinted in us. It doesn't matter whether you read a Bible or the Bible was given to you and you were this. It's imprinted in you the right and wrong. It's imprinted in you to look to the heavens and feel that there's more, and ask. And God hears. And for my perspective on things, it's a matter of God will make himself known. He will share himself. He is your Father. He is ever loving and everlasting, and has nothing but want to nurture and care for his children. So those guidances are always in God's hand. After all, God gave us the Bible and gave us Christ, and is a manifestation of himself in the flesh. He has done all these things so that it is part of knowing him. So I think the question isn't again a matter of how that question is approached to you. It would, for me, I was, after seeing these type of connections, I'm automatically turning it back onto them, going, well, wait a minute, you said you've never read the Bible, but yet you know Christ and you know God. You have so many opinions of it. So obviously you know it, or else you wouldn't have these opinions. So isn't your question just become really redundant? And I didn't get too much answer back from that, funny enough. But um, again, that also showed me that we don't have to get into these communication things of conflict and start squaring off with each other with a line in between us and um, escalate these questions or escalate a conversation into a low conflict and then a greater one and then a one in anger and one in frustration and keep building conflicts that don't need to be there. Even to the point if it this comes down to us going, okay, I'm not comfortable with that person's aggression or that attitude or whatever. I don't wish to engage in it, and I don't want to engage in this um, conflict. There's no reason that you are um, have to. You don't have to engage in it. It's also your free will choice to simply state your opinion from your point of view and what you believe, and respect the other one for what they want to say and do, and go have a nice day. Let me know how that one works out for you. Um, I don't myself to this point in my journey see anything wrong with that. Um, Another kind of example that hit me with that realization or that perspective, being able to put that perspective into um, verbal or into a language was I've just looked at myself over the last few years of this journey I've been on, discovering the truth about how the world is functioning and money matters and the whole other aspect of reality, the matrix that we uncover, um, our monetary systems, the wars, the man's behavior of things and why. It that kind of truthing brought me to the scriptures and brought me closer to God and started asking those questions, and God revealed himself, and our relationship is developing and growing every day. And I try to I ended up analyzing and thinking this week on how this relates to my wife and myself. It was amazing to me that for where I was in my life, just getting separated from a long-term relationship, going through the nightmare of our legal systems and all of that end of things, deciding how to meet somebody again because I knew it was going to happen and so forth. So I really decided to put a criteria on how to do that, and it was amazing that my wife was brought into my life at that time and that she's the person that she is, and how I so deeply appreciated her for the absolute being that she was, and how she was, and how it accentuated me, and how it supported me and taught me, and it was such a blessing, and I see our journey in that side, and as it grows, I see that these two scriptures in Romans, it and the question in this whole week has turned around and has put validity and has um, clarified my journey over the last 5 years in a different perspective. And this whole question of how does somebody who doesn't read the Bible and everything else, well then, it's impossible for them to know. Well, that's just so outstandingly ludicrous to me because my wife doesn't read the Bible. She has the same or greater or her perspective on religion and everything else, just as I did 5 years ago and 2 years ago and 10 years ago, and has all of her experiences. But I look at our journey and I go, okay, but wait a minute. God is revealing himself to her through me. So God is being known. And God is revealing himself through her to me every day by who she is and how that blessing is in my life. So again, it's so I'm discovering with these conflicts that there's so much of our perspective and our um, interpretation of conflict that we've really got to, I believe, start taking the responsibility for and making the change for ourselves. I don't think the conflicts is a matter of um, picking up a Dr. Spock book or picking up a Dr. Phil and, if somebody says this is how I should answer. Um, I don't think that's the way. By my experiences or what I'm um, discovering is I think conflicts themselves in the first place are part of the deception, are an engagement into keeping us unbalanced, keeping us on that emotional side of anger and frustration and upsetness. I think it's a tool to be used to keep us unbalanced and keep us further away from Christ. And I believe that the more that I curtail conversations and situations and everything else to being experiences instead of a conflict and keeping things from stopping to become a conflict, whether it's minor or escalates, is a very vital part of the journey, not only for our own self development and so forth, but I do really believe that it's something that fundamentally brings us closer and gives us a stronger relationship with Christ. And I I for myself ask for that wisdom and ask for that guidance every day. So that's kind of my answers to those two questions of conflict and how that journey over this week has really brought me to try to understand that whole term of conflict and what a conflict actually is, what its actual purpose is, and maybe some suggestions of how to view them that we can all lessen our conflict more in our life every day. Just in closing, I would like to uh, really express that feeling that you don't need, it's not the end requirement to Christ and God is to read the scriptures and to um, know the Bible inside out by memorizing it. Um, I can't justify that or believe in it whatsoever. Um, does it have its place? Does it uh, uh, have its benefits? Is it um, needed and all the rest of it, yes, of course, that's why it's there. I'm not saying anything against it. I'm saying it's a balance. And I think it's individual as well of what is needed. How did God create you? I don't believe God created every one of us exactly the same. And um, so to turn around and be able to feel and witness God sitting on a shore and feel his presence and know there's more and ask those questions and feel that in your heart is, I think, fundamentally so important, and it has been for me. And I wanted to share that one of these things that I discovered this week of almost being down on myself or being such self-judgmental of not knowing the scriptures better, not being able to recite them in that conflict that I was in, and it actually turning into um, me beating myself up about it and getting myself more upset about that. I saw what, by the end of this week, I saw what a mistake that was. And my intent of saying this, and I want to try to be as clear as I can. I want to share the expression, or my intent of this expression is, you are all individuals. You're children of God. He loves you. He will show you the way. He will make himself known to you. He will answer your questions. He will You will know him. He is imprinted in you. Um, that is the important part to me. And I hope that can help in not beating yourself up because you feel you don't measure up how somebody else is, or allow somebody else to say that this is the way it's done, and if you don't do it this way, then you have judgment to pay for it. So that's kind of my messaging for this week. I thank you for joining. Please pass it on and pass the show on. I hope that you will join us next week. I hope that you will call in and share your experiences or give your points of view. And again, please contact me for your input on what you would like the show to be. This resource and everything else is for us to build and to develop and experience this journey together in fellowship and sharing and under grace. And God willing, we'll all be here next Sunday, and we'll have a new topic. And I hope you share the post around. And NBC, please join our Facebook group, and we're at we'vebookedyourshow.com. You can share that link around. The archive of this will always be up in both MP3 and in MP4, so you're able to download it, share it with anybody that you wish to. Many blessings. Thank you for our time this evening. I'll have another Hillsong to close us out. I wish you all well and a great week. Take care. God bless.